Hello everybody, welcome to 2026 and welcome to a summary of every single book that I read in 2025. For starters, I apologize for the glare of the ring light in my glasses, but I would like to see today, so I will try to sit like this because it's not happening right now. But let's just jump straight into the stats about all of the books that I read in 2025. I read a total of 80 books in 2025. I want to put a little disclaimer or something in. 80 books is a lot of books. I want you to know that that doesn't mean anything, really, because I barely remember half of these books. And one of my main goals for 2026 is to read more mindfully and annotate books and stuff. So hopefully by the end of 2026, I will have comprehended and remembered the books that I'm reading. Anyway, I read 80 books, which, where did this go? 16 of them were physical books, which was 5,928 pages. 7 of them were books on my Kindle, which was 2,137 pages on my Kindle. And then 57 of them were audiobooks, which was 405 hours. That's crazy. That's crazy. What is that? Like an entire month of listening? I don't know how many hours that is. No, not an entire month. Hey Siri, how many days is 405 hours? 16 days. That's crazy. Let's just jump into the ratings, okay? So, I rate books on a 5-star scale, but I do not rate non-fiction books, just because it feels like I'm rating somebody's life story or somebody's opinions on something, and it's like, who am I to rate your life? No. So starting off, apparently I have a New York accent now. Starting off with the 5-star category, I read 6 5-star books in 2025, and then obviously we go down from there. I read 3 4.75 star books, 4 4.5 star books, 1 4.25 star book, 20 4-star books, which is crazy, 10 3.75 star books, 8 3.5 star books, 18 3-star books, 1 2.75 star book, 1 2.5 star book, and 1 1-star book. My average rating was 3.66 stars, which is pretty good. Like, I don't think that's bad at all. The fact that I read 20 4-star books is crazy to me. That's good. Anyway, let's talk about the genres. My most read genre in 2025 was thriller, which is all thanks to Freida McFadden, because I listened to probably 20 Freida McFadden books in 2025. I read 14 romance books, 13 fantasy books, 12 mystery books, 10 general fiction books, 6 nonfiction books, and 1 horror book, which I hope to read a little bit more of in 2026. My biggest reading accomplishment of 2025 was the fact that I read Game of Thrones, the first book, not the series, just the first book. It took me like 9 months or something. Anyway, let's jump right into the books that I read in 2025. I'm reading them in the order that they are written in my little book list here, which is the order that I started the books in, but it's not necessarily the order that I finished them in. Alright? Starting off strong, The first book I read in 2025 was The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which I rated 5 stars. If you are new here, you need to know that I am a very big fan of the Inheritance Games series and the spin-off series, etc. I loved it so much. I don't think I'm going to summarize most of these books, but The Grandest Game is part of the spin-off series of the Inheritance Games trilogy, which follows Avery Grams, who inherits a fortune from this random dude, and then she has to live with the family of this random dude who didn't inherit anything. And then there are games and mysteries and secrets, and it's very exciting. I then read I listened to Charm by Tracy Wolff, which I rated 4 stars. This is a YA fantasy romance, or romantasy, I guess, and it is so good. Like, this series has my heart, okay? I will be rereading it in 2026. It's essentially about a girl named... I can't tell you. I can't remember it. Our main character goes to live in Alaska because her parents passed away, and she's living in this school essentially with all these new people, and they're kind of strange. Like, some of them are outside in Alaska with no jackets and stuff. They're vampires, but we progress from there. The third book that I read in 2025 was Mother Knows Best by Serena Valentino, which is a fan fiction of Tangled, the movie Tangled, but it is about Mother Gothel. It was alright. I rated it 3 stars. It wasn't anything super special, but it was definitely interesting. I then I read The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, which is by far the best Freida McFadden book ever. I've read almost every single one of her books. I rated it 4 stars. It is essentially a plot of our main character who becomes a nanny for this richer family, and the mom of the family is kind of crazy, and then there's like some weird things going on, and it's a thriller. Okay? Then I listened to the second book in the, is it Crave or Charm? In the Charm series by Tracy Wolff, which is Cherish, which I also rated 4 stars. Same plot, just more everything. More romance, more fantasy, more everything. And it just gets so good. It's so good. I need to reread it so bad. Then I read The Housemaid's Secret, which is obviously the sequel to The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, which I also rated 4 stars. It's the same main character, just in a different setting, kind of, and it's a different story. Also very good. Then I read The Housemaid is Watching, which is the 3rd book, which I also rated 4 stars. Same thing. And then there's also a little novella after called The Housemaid's Wedding, which is super short. It was 76 pages on my Kindle, and I rated it 3 stars just because it was not much, you know. Then I read Mile High by Liz Tomford. I rated it 4 stars. If you don't know what the Windy City series is, you need to read it. It's sports romance, and there is spice, but this was the first book in the series, which I rated 5 stars. It's so good. I haven't even read the second one yet, but it's so good. Essentially, it's called Mile High because our main character is a flight attendant. She's a flight attendant on the airplane for this big hockey team, and then there's a romance between her and one of the players. Then I read Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings, which I rated 3 stars. I don't think I'm going to continue the series just because it's not really my thing. The writing really confuses me, and I'm just not super interested in it. It was also almost 600 pages. For a book I didn't like that much, can't do it. Then I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden, which I rated 3 stars. It's a decent book. I always forget the plot of some of Frida McFadden's books because they're very similar. This one and another one that I read last year were very similar, or they seem similar in my brain. Anyway, then I listened to The Ministry of Time by Kayleigh Bradley. This book was very, very popular in 2025, but I didn't like it very much. I rated it 3 stars, which does mean that I liked it, and it was a good book. I think the writing was very good. The plot just didn't get me, and I think that it was a little bit slow at some parts. Then I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, which I am in fact reading it in publishing order. I'm not reading Assassin's Blade first. Sue me. I rated it 4 stars. It's fantasy if you don't know. Oh, I didn't explain The Ministry of Time, but I also don't feel like it. Then I listened to Want to Know a Secret by Frida McFadden, which once again is a thriller, and I rated it 3.75 stars. This book was strange. It's kind of about our main character, who's a grown woman who receives mysterious, ominous texts from someone that are kind of threatening. Yeah. Then I listened to The Teacher by Frida McFadden. Are you seeing a trend here yet? I rated it 4 stars, and to be so honest with you, I can barely remember what happened in this book, so it probably shouldn't be a 4 stars. It's a thriller. It's a thriller. The next book I have is, once again, my biggest accomplishment of my entire life, probably. A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I only rated it 3.5 stars, which seems crazy, I think, because it took me so long to read. But I also think that that's part of it, because the chapters are so long. So long. Also, Game of Thrones is a fantasy series, right? We've all heard of it. You've probably watched it. I haven't. I'm going to read it all first. Tell me why the only fantasy aspect, pretty much the only fantasy aspect of this book, was the last sentence. It's an 807-page book. Pause. Although that one sentence got me so excited to read the next book, so stick around to see that sometime in the future, the second book in the Game of Thrones. Then I read Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry, which is in fact a nonfiction book about Matthew Perry, aka Chandler Bing from Friends. Once again, I didn't rate it, but if I were to rate my nonfiction books, this one would be 5 stars. So good. I highly recommend you read it. There is some triggering topics like addiction, and it's mostly about addiction, but there are some other triggering topics, so you could look those up, but I also think that it's just an important read overall. Even if you aren't a big fan of Friends, it was a good book. Then I listened to You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose, which I rated 3.75 stars, which is about a girl who books an Airbnb. She's staying there by herself, but the guy who owns the place is also staying there, and he's like this tall, handsome dude that she's like catching feelings for. But it is in fact a thriller, and there is in fact a missing person. Yeah. Then, oh, we gotta flip the page. Oh, I just ripped the page. Then I listened to The Harder I Fight, The More I Love You by Neko Case. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This book is also a nonfiction book, so I didn't rate it. But once again, if I did, I would rate it 5 stars. This book, I went into it not knowing that it was nonfiction. I just liked the cover of it. And then I was listening and I was thinking to myself, is this real? because if it is, this is crazy. This person has gone through so much stuff. It was so good though. The writing was really good. The storytelling was really good. It was really good. Then I listened to another audiobook, another nonfiction book, which was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, which again, it would have been 5 stars. Does me saying that take away the whole point of not rating nonfiction books? Because I think it's important to point out that I'm not trying to rate the story. It's more like the storytelling, the writing, etc. Because you can have a really good nonfiction book where the story is important and good, but not well written. You know? These ones were well written. The Woman in Me is essentially just Britney Spears telling her life story, because everyone thinks it's one way when it's really not, you know? Then I listened to Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger, which I rated 4 stars. This book is a murder mystery kind of, but it's also very, I want to say whimsical, but not in the cute sense. I don't know how to explain it, but it was really good. Then I listened to Becoming by Michelle Obama, which was also a nonfiction book. It was very good. I don't really follow politics very much, and I was also 3 or something when Barack Obama was the president of the United States, so I wasn't following it, obviously. But it was really interesting to see the First Lady's perspective of the things that are going on in the world, and I also really liked hearing about her childhood and her schooling and stuff. Then I listened to Ward D by Frida McFadden, which I rated 3.5 stars, which is the book that I get mixed up with The Inmate. They were both good. I rated one of them 4 stars and this one 3.5 stars, so. Then I read Saltwater by Katie Hayes, which is technically a general fiction book, but I would say it's also a mystery because we are investigating a murder, so there's that. Pretty much there's struggles between rich people and poor people, and there's murders, and it was pretty good. I rated it 3.75 stars. Then I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, which I rated 3 stars. This was the first and only book I've read by Ali Hazelwood, which I know that this one is different from her other books because it's spicier and it's less wholesome, I guess. It was decent. It's about swimmers and sex, essentially. Then I listened to The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, which I rated 4 stars. I also don't remember very much of this book, and I think that I need to reevaluate my Frida McFadden books. Then I read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I rated it 4.5 stars, but I don't remember it. I did write down summaries for books that I didn't remember, but that one was not one of them. So then I listened to Do Not Disturb by Frida McFadden, which I rated, I didn't rate it by accident, but we're rating it 3 stars. I counted it as a 3-star read in my stats because that's just a good general rating. I don't remember what this book was about. I don't. Then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which once again is a nonfiction book about finance, and it was super interesting to learn about. It's by Robert T. Kiyosaki. It was very interesting to learn about how he was raised, and he doesn't have 2 dads. He has a dad. His real dad is the poor dad, and then his rich dad is his best friend's dad, who was rich. And we just hear the stories, the differences between his poor dad's perspective and his rich dad's perspective. It was really good. And then I read Death by a Thousand Cuts by Shashi Bhatt. once again, I might not be pronouncing that right. This book is a short story collection about women and illnesses and strength and pain. That's all I got for you. Then I listened to a whole bunch of Frida McFadden. We have The Crash by Frida McFadden, which I rated 3.75 stars. And The Tenant, which I rated 3 stars. And The Surrogate Mother, which I rated 3 stars. I am not going to summarize these books for you. They were all very quick reads. Yeah. I also read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the second book in the Divine Rivals duology. I rated it 4.25 stars. I really liked Ruthless Vows compared to Divine Rivals because if you haven't read Divine Rivals, it's a fantasy romance book that has Greek gods. Are they Greek gods? I don't think so. They're just gods. There's a war with these gods, and that's the fantasy element of it. But the second book has way more fantasy. Not as much romance, but still romance. It was really good. We got 4 more Frida McFadden books. Let's just skip right through them. The Coworker, The Wife Upstairs, and One by One. This is editing me. I'm just searching all the pictures of the books, and I was searching One by One by Frida McFadden, and I put One by One FRIE for Frida McFadden. Look what showed up. And then I also listened to The Devil Wears Scrubs, which is not a thriller. It was a romance. Yeah. I rated The Coworker 3.75. The Wife Upstairs was 3 stars. One by One was 3.5 stars. And The Devil Wears Scrubs I also rated 3.5. Then I read Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, which is the only Emily Henry book that I have read, and I rated it 4.75 stars. I didn't really go into this book with any sort of expectation, but don't go into it thinking that it is just a romance book. Great Big Beautiful Life is about our 2 main characters who are fighting for this writing position to tell the story of a famous person who kind of went off the grid. Don't go into this book wanting it to be a romance, because there is romance, but not very much. And I will say, we jumped right into the physical connection, and I was just not expecting that. Then I listened to, you guessed it, more Frida McFadden, The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie. I rated it 3 stars. That's a crazy name, by the way. And then I listened to Do You Remember, which I rated 3.5 stars by Frida McFadden. Then I read Stuck Up and Stupid by Angourie Rice and Kate Rice, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling where our main character Lily goes, I don't know if she lives in this small town, but it's like a summer town kind of, and then it's kind of overtaken by famous Hollywood people, and she don't like that. And then it's romance. I rated it 3 stars. Then I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, which I rated 4 stars. It was so good. Just a really cute small town romance. We follow our main character, who is a famous pop singer, and she's done with it. She just needs a break, so she goes to the small town called Rome, Kentucky, and romance. Then I read the sequel to that book, which is Practice Makes Perfect, which follows the male main character from When in Rome's sister, and I rated that one 4.5 stars. It was also so good. I will say that one has more spice than When in Rome. Then I read A Song for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which I rated 3 stars. It was good. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it is for children, I believe, so there's that. But we kind of follow our main character who meets a robot, and then there's a friendship between this human and the robot. Yeah. Then I also read The Wild Robot by Peter Brown and Katie Atwater, which I rated 3.75 stars. It's about a robot in nature, and it's so adorable. She adopts a bird, a goose. It's so good. Then I listened to The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. This is a summary romance book, but it also is kind of like a senior assassin. I don't know where in the world people play this, but they play it in Canada, where seniors in high school have to shoot each other with water guns. I didn't play it, but that's essentially what this book is, but between family members and a wedding party, and it was really good. I rated it at 4.75 stars. Then we got my 1-star book of the year, The Gift by Frida McFadden. It was creepy as hell. It was weird, and I didn't like it. It took me 42 minutes to listen to. Then I listened to The Wild Robot Escapes, the sequel to Wild Robot, which I rated 3 stars. It was good. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't as good as the first one. Then I listened to The Devil You Know by Frida McFadden, which I rated 2.5 stars. And I think it's the sequel to The Devil Wears Scrubs. That's all I have to say. Then I listened to The Commuter by James Patterson, which I rated 4 stars. This is a super short book. It's a mystery, not necessarily thriller, I guess, but it was so good. Maybe I'll put the summary on the screen because I want you to read it, but I can't think of it at the moment. Then I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. 5 stars. 5 stars. But tell me why this book and Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry are the same plot. Both of them are 2 main characters fighting to write the story of this famous person. Is it not? Because if it's not, sorry, I'm confused. But I think it was. Then I read Local Women Missing by Mary Kubica. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I rated it 3.5 stars. We start the book off in the perspective of this little girl who is trapped in a basement, and she escapes, and she's like, yeah, my name's Delilah. She goes to the cops, and it's like, yeah, here's your family, and she's just like super awkward, weird girl. She's been missing for years, and then it develops from there, but there are more mysteries and more missing people involved, and it was really good. I enjoyed it. Then I read Matilda by Roald Dahl. Pause for a second. If you have never been here before, you need to know that my favorite thing on the entire planet is Matilda, the movie. Got it? I quote it daily, multiple times a day. It is my heart and soul. And I rated the book 5 stars, purely based on nostalgia. Because if I were to rate the book based on what the book is, I would rate it 2. It had none of the iconic quotes, none of the magical feelings, but I'm rating it 5 stars, and that's how I'm keeping it. Then I listened to Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and Owen King, which I believe is Stephen King's son. I rated it 4 stars. It is a fantasy, I'm gonna say fantasy book about women. Okay, so if you like women, no, that's not what I meant. Let me just readjust. Okay. This book is about an illness that is only affecting women all over the world, where essentially if they fall asleep, they don't wake up. And so we're following the point of view of men whose women and children are falling asleep, and also women who are trying not to fall asleep. And then there's fantasy elements going into it, and it was really, really good. It was really, really good, and I really liked it. 4 stars. I love Stephen King. Then I read Games Untold by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which was the next book in the Inheritance Games spin-off series things. I rated it 4.75 stars. Can't really tell you what it was about, but it is a short story collection about characters from the series, and it was so good, and it got me so excited for the next books. Then I listened to Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, which is about a woman who sees her son kill someone. Like, she's looking out the window of their house and her son is murdering someone. And then it's a Groundhog's Day trope where she's trying to prevent this from happening, and it gets super, super interesting and mysterious. I rated it 3.5 stars. Then I read The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden. I rated it 3 stars. It's essentially about, I don't remember if it was a sociopath or a psychopath, but the son was a super weird dude, and then it's like following some weird things going on in the family. Then I read The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, which I rated 3.75 stars. This book is about racism, okay? You should read it. Then I read If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura, which I rated 3 stars. This is a book translated from Japanese, and it was so interesting. I personally love books translated from Japanese. I think that the storytelling is just so interesting, and it's always so creative. But this story was about a man who finds out he has a terminal illness, and he's gonna die tomorrow. And then this devil guy appears, and he's like, if you get rid of one thing from the world, you can live another day. So then we just keep going on that path, and so he gets rid of things like a clock one day, or the phones, and it's just interesting. Then I listened to Down the Drain by Julia Fox, which is a nonfiction book about Julia Fox's life. I don't know who Julia Fox is. She's an actor, model person, but I didn't know that going into the book, and it was crazy. Like, I don't know how people live like this. I could never, but props to her for surviving. Props to her for being as strong as she is. Crazy. Then I read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. Once again, another book that was very, very popular in 2025 and the past few years, I think. I rated it 4 stars. It's by Gabrielle Zevin. This book is about our male main character, who I feel like I hear people say old man. He's in his 30s. He's not an old man. But this event happens that causes his whole life to change, and we start seeing him go from super grumpy dude that kind of is done being, he doesn't really care about anything, and then this thing happens, and now he's super community and family oriented, and it's very heartwarming. Then I read Coraline by Neil Gaiman, which is Coraline, the movie, but the book. I rated it 2.75 stars, mainly because if you've watched it, I listened to it, by the way. If you have watched the movie, you know that there are singing mice, and when the mice sing in this book, it is terrifying. Terrifying. It also was just super slow and boring. Then I listened to The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, which is a book about a girl who goes to see her brother in Paris, and he's just not there. And then there's like mysteries, and she kind of gets involved with the people that live there, and they're all just strange, etc. This next book is so good. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. 5 stars. 5 stars. This book is a fantasy romance book that pretty much is about a haunted house and the dude who lives in it, and then also this girl who needs money. It was so good. It was so good. Then I listened to another book about a haunted house, We Used to Live Here, by Marcus Klewer, which I rated 4 stars. It was also very, very good. We essentially follow this couple who moves into this house, and then this family comes and they're like, hey, we used to live here. Can we like check it out? And they're weird. They're weird people. And it develops from there. I would say it's a thriller, probably. Then I listened to Memory Man by David Baldacci, which I rated 3.75 stars. This is a mystery book about murders. Our main character has synesthesia, and I'll put it on the screen because I can never remember what it's called, but where he can remember everything. He cannot forget anything. And he also correlates things with colors and numbers, unlike most humans. And The Memory Man, the first book in the series, is about him essentially trying to solve the murder of his family that happened years ago. He's a retired cop, by the way. Then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which I rated 4 stars. This is just a simple romance book, but it's also very emotional. Which, yeah, we knew that was going to be a thing when we started reading Abby Jimenez. Then I listened to The Last Mile by David Baldacci, which is the second book in the Memory Man series, which I rated 3 stars. It's the same main character, but a different mystery, different murder. They're trying to solve a different murder. And then I read Glorious Rivals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which was the next book in the spin-off series of Inheritance Games, which I rated 3.75 stars. Once again, very, very good, but I can't talk much of the plot because it's like 7 books into the series or something. 7, that was right. That was a random guess. Then I listened to The Fix by David Baldacci, which is the 3rd book in the series, and I rated it 3 stars. Pretty much the same thing. I honestly don't know if I'm going to continue the series because it's super, super repetitive. And also, they talk about the fact that he remembers everything way too often in all of the books. And it's like, yeah, we got it. We're on the 3rd book, dude. We got it. Then I listened to Silver Elite by Danny Francis. I rated this book 4.5 stars. It's essentially a fantasy book about our main character who is different from everyone else because she has silver blood, which means that she has these powers, but she's able to hide them. And there's a whole thing. She's caught, essentially, but I've heard that this book might be written by AI, which terrifies me because I don't support that. I would much rather read a book by a human. I want to support humans. Then I listened to Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I rated it 4 stars. Can I remember it? No. Then I listened to Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Why did I say it like that? Frederick Bachman, which I also rated 4 stars. This one I can remember. You've probably heard about it because Frederick Bachman is so popular right now. But it's essentially a book about, or we're following the point of view of many people who are involved in this hostage situation. And it is just strange. The writing style is so interesting. You should read it. You should definitely read it. Then I listened to Darling Girls by Hallie Sepworth, which I rated 3.5 stars. This book, I literally, how am I just reading this, remembering this? Those 2 books in the charm books that I'm telling you about, they're not the first books in the series. It's like the 5th and 6th book or something, the very last books. Anyway, Darling Girls is about an orphan girl who goes to live in this foster home, and the mom is super, super loving and obsessed with the daughter, and then she gets more foster kids, and then she starts being weird. Then I listened to The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, which I rated 4.5 stars. This is a magical realism romance book about an apartment that goes back 7 years in time. It was so good. I love Ashley Poston. We're almost done. I read A Christmas Memory by Richard Paul Evans. This book was a 5-star read. If you want to cry, read this book. It's essentially the story of a boy named Richard who has a very difficult year in his life when he's young. And there are some trigger warnings, so search them up. But it was so good. I bawled my eyes out, and you can see me watch it. You can watch me read it in this video. My Christmas bookish vlogs video. Not bookish, book vlog. Then I read The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett, which is a Christmas spin-off of The Appeal. And I didn't know that when I went into it. But I rated it 2.5 stars because it just wasn't very good. I didn't enjoy the writing. It said that it was an adult fiction book, but it read very childish, dare I say. And it just wasn't my thing, really. Then I read Christmas Eve Love Story by Ginny Baird, which was an Advent book, like an Advent calendar. You open one section a day leading up to Christmas. And the story was good. I rated it 4 stars. But if you read this book, start it on December 14th and finish it on December 25th. Got it? The last book I read in 2025 was Magic and Mint Martinis by Emily Mitchell, which I rated 3.75 stars, which is a book about Christmas, romance, Santa, elves. Yep. That is everything. That is every single book that I read in 2025. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video and my videos last year. I hope you stick around for the year of 2026. I will be posting more consistently this year. Let me know if you have any book or video recommendations. I always need these things. And I will see you very soon. Bye.